My name is M Zaid, doing the Graduate Diploma of Maritime Management. The title of this academic poster is the Comprehensive Review of the STCW Convention. The main purpose of choosing this topic is that due to the rapid digitalization of the shipping industry, new knowledge and skills are required to perform the functions in the shipping industry. Moving on to the introduction, prior to 1978, the seafarer education and training was carried out according to individual governments. And figure one shows the timeline of international regulatory developments. Moving on to the purpose. The purpose of this study is to uh, review uh, the purpose of this study is to analyze the objectives of the convention, identify the gaps and recommend solutions for the STCW convention. The methodology was used was the literature review of the STCW convention and the code, further literature from sources such as mentioned here, including IMO, WM, World Maritime University. Sources mentioned here were literature from the sources were reviewed. Um, Moving on to the objectives, the Article 1.2 states of the STCW 1978 Convention states that obligates the all parties to the convention to enforce necessary laws and regulations to implement the convention and to ensure that seafarers on board ships are qualified as well as fit for their duties. The STCW Convention consists of 17 articles and an annex with 9 chapters and regulations. In this STCW 78 Convention, the standards were structured according to rank, unlike today, which is structured according to the levels of responsibility. And one notable feature in the STCW 78 is lack of mechanisms such as approved education and training, uh, absence of these terms, and how. But in the present STCW convention, it is clearly expressed mechanisms such as approved education and training. Uh, Moving on to the impacts. The impact of the STCW 1978 convention was that it introduced a uniform standards of training, certification, and watchkeeping, which most nations followed. But at the same time, there were gaps in the conventions, gaps in the sense such as issue of service certificates for the existing seafarers, which they didn't have an approved education, and there was lack of mechanisms such as approved education and training, and there was the lack of mechanisms such as quality standards, and there was a lack of robust oversight mechanism as well. And there was a growing concern from the shipping industry about the qualifications and performance of seafarers who are employed by new seafaring nations. And hence, because of these reasons, in 1995, the convention was amended. Moving on to the impacts of the STCW Convention 1995, it was a major revision. The structure was completely overhauled. The technical annex to the convention was expanded, divided into chapters and regulations. There were more robust control mechanisms also. In the introduction of approved education and training, and there were more administrative responsibilities were for party states, and it adopted the STCW codes, Part A and B, as well as it introduced the quality standards for education and training. And finally, it led to the creation of the IMO White List of Nations who are deemed to be compliant with the convention. And moving on to the impacts of the STCW 2010, the STCW 2010 or the Manila Amendments were introduced to address some of the technological and operational changes which was happening in the shipping industry. The amendments introduced 13 new requirements. There were new competencies such as electrotechnical officers in competencies for able seafarers and measures to address fraudulent certificates, revised work hours, and there was a brief guidance on the use of distance learning and e-learning. And moving on to the limitations of the treaty. Currently, it is a standard practice for seafarers before joining the ship to appear for a pre-joining briefing or a training session, which can take 4 months. And shipping companies have to spend quite an amount to the training. These training sessions are identified as gaps by industry leaders and the industry leaders. And hence, the also the purpose, scope, and the status of IMO model courses are not clearly defined in the STCW convention or the code. And also, there are delays, constraints when new amendments are adopted. It takes time to be implemented in the training regimes of various countries. And the industry leaders does not regard the wide list as a credible source of information. And one notable thing is in STCW Code Part A, in the competency tables, uh, for the specific learning outcomes, there are lack of Bloom's taxonomy action verbs. There is a lack of these verbs. Uh, Moving on to the continuing with the limitations, as we can see, this graph, the figure is from the 2021 Training Practices report of Maritime Training Insights database. As we can see here, the new training drivers are customer demand and change in technology are they are the main drivers for new training initiatives, which means that something has to be done for the existing training regime. Finally, proceeding to the recommendations, come the I a comprehensive review of the STCW convention and STCW convention and the code is to be carried out according to the resolution 15 of STCW 2010 at the earliest, although 10 years is specified. The review for the should be such that for the convention that it addresses in the any inconsistencies meanwhile, and it caters to new knowledge, skills, and proficiency to cater to the digitalization of the shipping industry. And it ensures that seafarer education and training are internationally recognized. And it enables a robust dynamic oversight of the implementation of the convention. And the convention is adaptable to future changes in technology, regulations, and ship operations. And it should define the purpose, scope, and status of IMO model courses. And for the code, the recommendations are Bloom taxonomy action words may be used to describe the specific learning outcomes in the STCW code part A, and assessment criteria in the STCW code part A may be such that it promotes student engagement, skills transfer, and it addresses the underpinning knowledge and skills. Finally, to conclude, the world is now more connected than ever following the concepts of globalization. Teaching and learning methodologies are evolving, adapting to new technologies and to the learners of today. Hence, a comprehensive revision of the STCW Convention must be such that it caters to the dynamic scientific and technology evolving world, and it enables and promotes the upskilling of seafarers, and it ensures that seafarers are world ready. Thank you.